I just remembered that this is supposed to be a wrap-up as well. So today I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up and my February TBR. So this month was an okay reading month. It wasn't my best reading month, but it also wasn't the worst reading month imaginable. I always know that going into January, it's going to be kind of a difficult reading situation, mainly because I am starting to get back into school, and you know, I kind of get a little anxious in January for some reason. But actually overall, I feel like out of the books that I read some really good stuff. So I'm going to start off with the first book that I read this month, and that was The Princes of Summer by Nissa Leader, I want to say. I don't really know how to pronounce her name, but I will put up the cover right here. And this one is basically kind of reminiscent of Holly Black. At least personally, I feel like it's very Holly Black-esque. It's about this girl, and she is a mortal, and she gets taken to the fairy world, and she is surrounded by all these fae, and there's these two brothers, or half-brothers, I guess, and they are battling against each other for the throne, and she's kind of caught in the middle of it. It's also a bit of a love triangle between her and the two half-brothers, and it was interesting. It wasn't like the best thing I've ever read. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was pretty much in the middle. I had a good time reading it, but at the same time, it was just kind of like, meh. I found this audiobook on Hoopla, so I was really excited about that. I do love the covers of this series though. The covers are absolutely gorgeous, and I do think I'm going to read the second book. Maybe not this month, maybe next month. I'm not really sure, but I do think I'm interested enough in the series to continue with it, just not at this moment. And then finally we get into my 5-star reads, and the first one is this one, Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan, and I love this book so much. This is definitely one of my new favorite books of all time. I feel like since the summary on the inside cover really sold it for me, I'm going to read it to you guys. It says, "Some stories are so beautiful, so brutal, that they claw at your heart and refuse to let go. Welcome to the world of Wicked Saints, an epic, passionate novel that you won't soon forget. Prepare to meet a girl named Nadia who hears the whispers of the gods inside her head. A prince surrounded by desperate suitors and deadly assassins. A monster hidden behind pale, tortured eyes and a smile that cuts like a knife. The paths of these 3 characters become entwined during a centuries-long war filled with sinners and saints, magic and mystery, and a star-crossed romance that threatens to tip the scales between dark and light forever." And if that is not like the perfect book for me, then what is? It's everything I want. It's darkness and light battling it out, becoming sort of like a gray area where things are really complex and aren't exactly for certain, and I just love that so much. And I love all of like the morally gray characters. Like, no one is completely right or wrong, and there are some really good questions of morality and religion, and it's just so perfectly done and so beautiful. I am dying for the next book, Ruthless Gods. Like, I put on Twitter, I would kill for an arc of Ruthless Gods. It is like my most anticipated book now, and it was such a surprise to me because I really didn't think that I was gonna like this book. I went into it kind of being like, well, let's see. It's kind of had like a bit of mixed reviews from a lot of people that I trust. So there are some people that really liked it, some people who really didn't, others who are just kind of like confused. And I can kind of see where they're all coming from. I feel like this is a book that has a very specific audience, and it's definitely not going to appeal to a lot of people. But if you're like me and you have similar interests, and if you like certain characteristics of like, you know, character tropes and stuff like that, you're going to really love this book. And I feel like if you liked And I Darken, you're gonna like this book as well. They're very reminiscent. The second book wasn't as big of a surprise, but it was just as big of a 5-star read, and that is Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, which is a Star Wars novel. So basically, if you didn't know and you haven't been like stalking my Twitter for the past week or so, you wouldn't know that Claudia Gray is one of my favorite Star Wars writers of all time. She's amazing. There's no one better than her. I've read 3 of her books now from Star Wars. That's Bloodline, Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and now Lost Stars. So I gave this one a 5 out of 5. So basically this book is about 2 childhood friends, and they grow up on this outer rim planet called Jalukin, and they are both training to be part of the Empire and become pilots and kind of go up the ranks of the Empire. And after they complete their training, they start to go off on 2 different paths. Sienna is very, very loyal to the Empire, whereas Thane is definitely more questioning of the Empire and isn't totally aligned with what the Empire is doing to the entire galaxy, and like enslavement of people and mistreatment and stuff like that. He's really not into it. So he ends up joining the rebellion. And they are placed on 2 different sides of the war, and it's just this really interesting story. Like similar to Wicked Saints, where it's kind of about morality and the lightness and the darkness of the galaxy. And it's just amazing. Like, I cannot say enough good things about this book. I knew I would really like it because I love hate-to-love romances, but this is so much more than that. Mainly because Sienna and Thane grow up together, and they are like these really close childhood friends. They're all each other has. And then, you know, their belief systems start to really become an issue for them, and where they butt heads and where they just disagree completely. And it's really interesting to watch them go from friends to almost lovers, and then to hatred, and then to love. And it's just like such a wonderfully complex roller coaster that this book takes you on, and it's gorgeous and it's sweeping, and it's just everything that you love about Star Wars that isn't like centered around the Skywalkers. It's in this book. It's just amazing. It's wonderful. I'm pretty sure it's set somewhere between Episode 3 and Rogue One. I don't think Rogue One, well, it kind of goes through Rogue One and a little bit through 4, 5, and 6. So it's kind of like it spans a really long journey throughout the years of Star Wars, and it's just so good. And it's really fun to watch them grow up from like little kids to somewhere in their early 20s, I would assume, at least from like how old Leia is and how old, you know, where the certain sections of the book align with the movies. So I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about it. It's just so amazing. And if you're looking for a place to start within the entire Star Wars canon, I would definitely recommend this book first, or Leia, Princess of Alderaan. They're both really good books, but I definitely say this one first. It's so good. It's so amazing. I want to like immediately reread it, but I'm going to stop myself because I really shouldn't. I have other Star Wars books to get to, and I don't know, I love this book. It's so good. Okay, so those were all the books I read in January. So now off to my TBR. I have quite a few books on my TBR for this month. I really want to read a lot more than I did in January. Maybe not as much as I read last year in February. Last year I think I read about 20 to maybe 22-ish books. I can't really remember the exact number, but I read quite a few books in February last year, and I definitely kind of want to replicate that as well. So I picked out about 10, I almost dropped every single book of my TBR. I picked 10 different books for my TBR, and I'll show you them right now. So the first book is one I'm actually currently in the middle of, and that is Defy the Stars by Claudia Gray, and I am loving this book so much. It's about a human girl and an android, I guess. Like basically a robot that looks like a human. I don't know what that's called, but they are kind of enemies, sort of, a little bit of allies, a little bit of not, and it's interesting so far. I haven't gotten too far into it, as you can see. I'm about that much into it, but I am really, really loving it. I don't really want to go too far into this book and what it's about, so I'll leave it at that. The next book is, of course, a Star Wars book because I'm totally on my Star Wars and sci-fi kick, and that is Last Shot by Daniel Jose Older, and this is a book about Lando Calrissian and Han Solo. So if you don't know, Han Solo, he's like the kind of like gunslinger guy in Star Wars. We meet him in A New Hope, and he is also the love interest for Princess Leia. And then we also meet Lando Calrissian in Empire Strikes Back, and he is Han's old friend, and also kind of, not really enemies, I guess, just like they kind of butt heads a little bit sometimes, and they're not always like the most trustful guys, but they are good friends, and it's going to be really interesting to see their friendship dynamic in this book, because I feel like you get a little bit of that in Empire Strikes Back, and you get a little bit more of that in Solo, but not enough. I just need more of them. I just love them together. They're so funny, and they're some of the best characters in Star Wars, so it's going to be really interesting to see them in a book. Also, I picked up this book because on TikTok I heard that there are some good, like, little baby Ben Solo moments in this book, and I'm very intrigued. Also, look at how small and tiny and cute this book is. It's so adorable. So because it's Black History Month, I did want to choose a couple of books written by Black authors to read for this month, and the first one I chose was This Is Kind of an Epic Love Story by Case and Calendar. And I've never read anything by Case and Calendar, but I've heard some really good things about their books, and this one is, I think, the only book from them that I own, and I got it, and it looks really interesting. And I'm pretty sure that it's about a boy, and he wants to be a movie maker, like a film director possibly. Oh, he's an aspiring screenwriter. I always get that wrong. Every time I talk about this book, I get it wrong. I'm like, he wants to be a director. No, he wants to be a screenwriter. And it seems like Nate has been going through a lot of things with, like, issues with his family life and some deaths in his family, and that's been really weighing heavily on him and kind of stopping him from getting into any sort of relationship. And now his best friend is helping him find someone to kind of get together with. And it seems like he's starting to fall for one of his other friends. And it's just going to be a really interesting story. It's really, really short. And I have been kind of craving a fluffy contemporary book. So I'm hoping that this one is one of them. I mean, it says it's kind of an epic love story. So I'm hoping that the title is correct. The next book is one I am super excited to read, and I've been kind of like eyeballing every once in a while, being like, I'm gonna read you at some point. And that is A Blade So Black by L.L. McKinney, and I have been wanting to read this book for so long. I actually just got it recently, I think maybe a month or so ago. So it's kind of like a new acquisition into my little personal library. But this one is a modern retelling of Alice in Wonderland, I think. I'm pretty sure that L.L. McKinney on Twitter always describes it as Alice in Wonderland meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I love Alice in Wonderland. I've never seen Buffy, but I'm hoping that I really like this combination. And the main character looks really cool on the cover. And I don't know, it just seems like a book that I might really enjoy. The next book is an ARC that I got a while ago, and that's Slay by Brittany Morris. And I am just so excited to read this book. This cover is so gorgeous, and it's not a super long book either. So I'm hoping that, you know, because February is not a very long month, that I'll be able to get through all these books in like a pretty good pace. But this one I'm pretty sure is about video games, and I'm not a huge video game player. Okay, so this sounds really, really intriguing. It's about Kira Johnson, and she's 17 years old, and she likes to play this game called Slay. And it seems like it's very Black-oriented, which is really cool. But one day there's a teen in Kansas City that's murdered because of the game. And it seems like the game starts to kind of get some bad press. And oh my god, okay, this sounds really interesting. Okay, there's a sentence that says, even worse, an anonymous troll infiltrates the game, threatening to sue Kira for anti-white discrimination. Driven to save the only world in which she can be herself, Kira must preserve her secret identity and harness what it means to be unapologetically Black in a world intimidated by Blackness. But can she protect her game without losing herself in the process? This sounds really interesting. This is what I get for not reading the summaries on the back of books, is that I don't really know what they're about. I just, like, enjoy the idea of the premise, but I don't know the premise, and this sounds really intriguing and super exciting. Like, that actually gave me, like, an emotional response, so I'm very excited to read this book. So the next book is another ARC that I got a while ago, and that is Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. This has been sitting on my shelf for way too long, and I need to read it. I really, really do. This is a fantasy book, and I love fantasy, as you guys know, but I haven't read enough black fantasy, and I really need to change that. That has to change this year, I swear. And I really want to start big this year, so we're going to start with Kingdom of Souls, and I'm super excited about this book. So basically, it seems like there is this girl who's the main character, and she's born into this very powerful family, but she's born without magic, and so she's always been kind of insecure about that, and when people start to go missing, she has to kind of like go on this quest to find them and to, I'm guessing, get magic as well. It says, the long imprisoned Demon King is stirring, and she may be the only one who can stop him. If he awakens, the Demon King's hunger for souls will bring Era's world to its knees, unless she pays the price for the magic to save it. So that sounds super interesting. I love this cover. And I don't know, it's kind of a thicker book. I'm a little nervous, but it shouldn't be too difficult to finish. It's less than 500 pages, so I should be fine. Just a couple more books left on my TBR. I'll try to go through these ones a little bit faster. The next one is The Gravity of Us by Phil Stamper. I got this arc, I think, about a month or so ago, maybe a month ago, sometime in December. And this one has been just like on my mind recently. I think I saw someone else put this on their TBR, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have that book. I feel like I didn't request this book from the publisher, but they sent it to me anyway, and it just sounds really interesting. I know it has to do with NASA and space travel, and it also seems like it's about social media fame as well, so that might be a really interesting topic to explore. And it is also queer, which is really exciting. And I don't know, it just sounds really interesting, and definitely a book that I might enjoy. We'll see. But I think since it has to do with NASA, that might be a really interesting topic to explore. Oh, look, another queer book. I have Reverie by Ryan LaSala, and I am so excited about this book. I really wanted to put one of my Book of the Month books on my TBR, mainly because I have quite a few of them, and I just haven't gotten to them recently. And I really, really want to read this book. I follow Ryan on Twitter, and he is so funny, so amazing. I love every single post that he makes, and all of his like promo for this book is just so funny and so amazing and so much fun, and he makes me want to read this book even more. I'm very, very excited about it. I love the tagline, "Some dreams chase you back," and like this cover is just so pretty. The next one is one I started a little while ago and never finished, and I really want to finish it this year because I was really enjoying it, but I kind of started it when I was a little bit of a, like, in a slumpy mood, and that is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faizal. And I am just really excited to finally get back into this book. I read about 93 pages, so I almost got to page 100, and I remember I was really, really enjoying it. I'm probably going to have to kind of like skim through those 93 pages, but I do remember really liking it, and I'm very excited to continue on with this book, and hopefully I'll let you guys know what I think about it, because hopefully I will finish it this month. And the very last book is one I keep thinking about constantly, and that is Damsel by Elena K. Arnold. And I'm very, very excited to read this book. It's super short, so I'm hoping that it won't be like too much for my TBR, and I'm just so excited to read this. I think I've mentioned it a few times on my channel. This is kind of like a fairy tale-esque retelling, but also something that flips fairy tales on their head and kind of subverts a lot of fairy tale tropes. It seems like it's kind of like a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but the Sleeping Beauty is not exactly thrilled to have been saved. So I think that it's going to be exciting. I haven't heard too many people talk about this book, but it sounds like something that might be right up my alley. Alright, so those were the books that I read in January and the books I hope to read in February. I know that was a really, really long video, and I wanted to try to make my videos a lot shorter, so hopefully I can like edit this one down a little bit and take out some like extraneous parts. But overall, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Let me know down below the books that you're reading this month. And also, I might go to the library sometime this month and check out some books. So I might be adding a couple to my TBR. We'll see how it goes so far. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!